Hello, welcome to lesson number 2 in a course of 12 lessons focused on principles and tools that can help us improve throughput for a better company, happier employees, and more satisfied customers. In lesson 1, we introduced you to the concept of throughput and the value that comes to not just our customers in the company, but you personally when we increase throughput. We then discussed our strategy to increase this throughput so you can win big. Now it's time to start digging into our continuous improvement toolbox that will help us put our strategy plan into action at every level, removing boulders from our production value stream, so to speak, to create a smooth, intense flow in our system. Most of the tools we use derive from a system called lean manufacturing. And although some of the tools we will be discussing don't come directly from the lean manufacturing program, they can all be applied to the lean methodology and general concept of continuous improvement through the elimination of waste. The key is to take a proactive approach to continuous improvement if we want to achieve what good looks like, as illustrated in Lesson 1. Okay, so let's introduce you to the continuous improvement toolbox, starting with an explanation of what lean manufacturing is. Lean manufacturing is a production philosophy focused on maximizing value while minimizing waste. It originated from the Toyota production system and revolves around doing more with less time, inventory, space, and effort, while delivering exactly what the customer needs. In a nutshell, lean is about eliminating waste, anything that doesn't add value, improving flow of materials and information, empowering workers to solve problems, continuously improving processes. It's guided by 5 core principles. 1. Value. Defined what the customer truly wants. 2. Understanding the value stream. Map all steps and remove non-value adding ones. 3. Flow. Ensure smooth progression without delays. 4. Pull. Produce only what's needed when it's needed. 5. Perfection. Strive for continuous improvement. It's all about just-in-time production, which is a mindset of making only what is needed when it's needed, and learning to work smarter, not harder. Lean manufacturing traces its roots to post-World War II Japan, particularly to the Toyota production system, often referred to as TPS, and was developed by Taiichi Ono and Kiichiro Toyota. They were inspired by earlier innovations like Henry Ford's flow production and Frederick Taylor's scientific management, but adapted these ideas to Japan's resource-constrained environment, where it became a matter of survival to create more with less. So, let's dive in and start off by defining the first core principle of lean: value. In Lesson 1, we talked about how generating throughput can add value to you, the customer, and the company, and how the end goal is a win-win-win for everybody. But ultimately, from a business standpoint, the goal is profitability. And this hinges on receiving payment from the customer. It can be compared to a car, which would represent the business, and the passengers in the car representing the employees. The engine, which can be compared to our manufacturing system, has the power to move the vehicle and passengers to their desired destinations. But the customer is like the fuel. Without the fuel, we aren't going anywhere. So when we talk about value from a lean perspective, we are focusing on the fuel, or in other words, the customer. It's not about effort, cost, tradition, or what the producer thinks is valuable. It's about usefulness to the customer. If they don't want to pay for it, it's not valuable. So if any action performed is not transforming something into what the customer is willing to pay for, it is considered wasteful activity and is a candidate for elimination. One thing to keep in mind when discussing these principles is that they are scalable and can be applied to many facets of life. In a business, we have the paying customer at the end of the production line, and this is who we refer to generically when using the term customer. But if you zoom in to separate departments or even processes within a department, you find in-house customers. For example, the finish department can be looked at as an in-house customer to the door department, because they are receiving the finished product from the door department. So all value is ultimately defined by the end or paying customer, but it is also important to consider in-house customers when deciding whether an action is adding value. For example, an improvement that creates better efficiency in one department may potentially add extra work to a department downstream, thereby nullifying the improvement. The principles taught in these lessons can be of great value when applied at work, but with just as much benefit on a personal level, should you choose to apply them to your daily life, which is great because personal development is a top goal for our company. We don't just want to build cabinets, we want to build people. Okay, so speaking of value, all activity can be categorized into 3 categories. Value-adding activities are actions that actively transform the product into something the customer is willing to pay for. These are activities we want to keep doing, but can be improved by optimization. Non-value-adding activity. All other activity is considered waste or non-value-adding activity. Because if the customer isn't paying for it, who is? We are. In other words, it's adding to this cost line on our chart. We should be seeking to eliminate these activities altogether. The third activity is non-value-adding, but necessary activities. These are activities that do not directly transform the product closer to what the customer is willing to pay for, but by performing them, they reduce more waste than they create. They enable us to get the customer what they want sooner, with better quality and at reduced costs. For these reasons, they're considered necessary until a better option is available. But we would seek to minimize these activities as we pursue continuous improvement. So value is determined by, it transforms the actual product to be closer to its finished state when the customer can receive it. Any action the customer is willing to pay for is considered value. Anything outside of these 2 criteria is considered waste and is opportunity for improvement. So how much waste is in a typical system? What would be your guess? This may surprise you, but in any given company, statistically speaking, we find that 90 to 95% of all activity falls within the category of waste, and only 5 to 10% lands in the value-adding or necessary categories. Check out this video clip from Lean Smarts to see value-added and non-value-added activities illustration in the real world.
Here's the clip where I answer the question, what is value in Lean? Let's go ahead and jump into the difference between value and waste. This is a big deal, a huge deal. Waste gets into the very heart of lean manufacturing, eliminating waste. So one of the very first things you must learn is how to distinguish between what creates value and what is wasteful. Here's what I mean. Value is whatever the customer is willing to pay for. It's what the customer wants. Waste is everything else. To take this a little bit further, a value-adding activity is anything that transforms material into what the customer wants. And a wasteful activity is anything that does not transform material into what the customer wants. So we're looking at actual transformation into something that's closer to what the customer is willing to pay for. Here's some examples of value-adding activities. Here's an operator assembling 2 parts together. Here he is applying plumber's tape to the thread, and now he's applying glue to some other parts, and here he's tightening a nut on one of these parts. All of these examples are of value-adding activities because they actually transform the product. These are the only activities that matter because they're the only ones that create value and transform the product. To illustrate this further, I want to show you a time-lapse video of this operator assembling a handful of parts. You'll see here on the right-hand side a stoplight that flashes red or green. Whenever he's doing something that creates value, it flashes green. Whenever he's doing something that's wasteful, it flashes red. And as you can see, there's a lot of motion, even some walking, and so a lot of red. In general, a lot more red than green. Now let's speed up this video and get to the end so that we can perform some basic analysis of what's going on. When we analyze this entire video clip of 379 seconds, you see a lot more red than you do green. When you count up the value adding time, the green bars, it only amounts to 34 seconds. And when you count up the red time, the wasteful time, there's 345 seconds. Do a little math and you'll see that only 9% is value-adding time.
Look at how much red there is. Isn't that crazy? If you want to see how your processes line up, the CI team can be of assistance at the request of supervisors when seeking to create value stream maps or process value analysis in your area, enabling you identify waste in your system. We need to learn that although surprising it is, spotting waste or identifying boulders in our value stream, so to speak, is not a bad thing. We should see this red as opportunity. This is room for improvement, a lot of room. And this means we have a ton of capacity sitting right under our nose without having to spend a penny. In this case, it's not selfish to go after the biggest piece of the pie. Let's eat it up. In many businesses, the approach to improvement is spent optimizing the value-adding activities, which has benefit, but the greatest opportunity for improvement lies in eliminating the biggest piece of the pie, waste. In fact, this concept of eliminating waste is also the key to optimizing value-adding activities. Because in reality, you cannot even improve a value-added activity without zooming into it and removing waste at a molecular level. Remember, these principles are scalable, but our primary focus should be on the obvious waste sitting above the surface first. If we accomplish this, the optimization of value-adding activities will come as a bonus byproduct through the habits we create along the journey. As we eat away from the waste section of the pie, the value-adding portion becomes bigger, occupying more of our daily activity. Like a strong man, as we get more lean, we can carry the same load to its destination easier or carry more than we did before. So, waste should be our focus. Let's zoom into this section a little bit and see what we find. If we want to be able to eliminate it, we must be able to spot it. What do these little monsters look like that cause so much havoc in our value stream? All waste fits into 8 categories and can be remembered by the acronym downtime, DOWNTIME. We have defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. The more you learn about each of these wastes, the more you will begin to see them in your daily activities, and the more we will be empowered as a team to boost throughput. In the following lessons, we'll go into each of the 8 wastes in detail, so you can become an expert at spotting these little monsters in your work area and help take some bites out of this big old piece of the pie to convert this opportunity into more throughput, which is what? The opportunity to add value to the company, value for the customer, and value to you. Okay, that sums up Lesson 2 on our Lean Smart education course. Now you can take the quiz to get certified on this lesson and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful week.